latest podcast, The Heidelcast.
It's a Heidel minicast. And now, Scott Clark.
Imply is not infer.
If the Heidelcast helps you, won't you help us keep it going? Please make the coffer clink by clicking on the PayPal link or by sending a check to Heidelberg Reformation Association, 1637 East Valley Parkway, number 391, Escondido, California, 92027.
Sometimes listeners and readers write to us here at the Heidelberg Reformation Association to say how much they benefit from and enjoy the writing and the podcasting that's done by the HRA. We appreciate that very much. It's very encouraging. But the best thing is when they say, and we are praying for you. We really appreciate that. As I always say, unless the Lord builds the house, the laborer works in vain. And we're doing an addition, as I'm talking to you right now, to the house, so I'll have a place to put my books, a place to study, and a place to record. And it's amazing how many things have to come together just to add one room to the house. You know, we're not building a house, we're just adding a room. There's so many contingencies. So that passage of Scripture is taking on new meaning for me, that we really are dependent on the Lord, and it's through prayer that He operates and blesses. So thank you very much. I thought as part of this series, Grammar Guerrilla, this is part 3 or number 3 in the series, I would mention a writer in each episode who has affected me, I guess, whose writing I've really enjoyed. And the one I thought of for this episode is D.G. Hart, Darrell Glenn Hart. I have read every book he's published to the best of my knowledge. His doctoral dissertation was one of the best that I read when I read it, and it's still one of the best written dissertations I've ever read. It was very polished. It was interesting. It was just well written. Oftentimes, dissertations are badly written because the writer is so worried about getting the stuff right that he or she just spends no time on making sure that the thesis is a reasonably enjoyable experience for the reader. And so they can be very difficult to read. And sometimes academic writers write in dense paragraphs, dense sentences that are very slow and turgid. How about that? You can, if you don't use that word every day, you can look that one up. Thick, muddy, difficult to, make out. And so that's a common feature of academic writing. And Darrell's writing wasn't like that in his dissertation, and it hasn't been like that in his published works. You can read his dissertation as Defending the Faith. It's a volume on J. Gresham Machen. So he's published a number of books. I recommend his work just, in terms of the material that he's written, highly. And I've learned from every single one. Sometimes I read Darrell's book. This is a typical experience. I read his book and I think, as I'm working through it, I don't agree with this. I think he's wrong. And then by the time we're at the end of the book, he's won me over. That's happened more than once. So I particularly remember that with his book on the spirituality of the church. And I think the title of it was A Secular Faith. His volume, Recovering Mother Kirk, was very influential. He really helped me to begin to think more clearly about the regulative principle. We ended up in slightly different places, but I appreciate it very much. His book, The Lost Soul of American Protestantism, is a classic, published in 2002, published by Rowman and Littlefield. I think every Reformed Christian should read it. If you're a minister, you should read it. If you're a ruling elder, you should read it. If you teach Sunday school, you should read it. If you just have an interest in what happened to American Christianity, you should read that book because he fills in the picture in a way that very few writers do. There's a story that is told, and it's true, but they often omit an important category. And I don't want to give the book away in case you haven't read it, but I teach a course on the Reformed Confessions, and I make my students read that. And I encourage them really to read it carefully and closely because it's just that valuable. So I recommend and commend to you the writing of D.G. Hart.
Ladies and gentlemen, Scott Clark.
Now, as they say, on with the show. So in this episode, I want to talk about the difference between imply and infer. Well, obviously, these words are closely related in their meaning, but they are distinct in their subjects. And this goes back to the earlier podcasts in this series. So if you're just joining the podcast, go ahead and go back to episode 1 in this series, Grammar Guerrilla, because I don't want to go back through and do all that grammar stuff. But the subject is the person or being or thing doing the action. And that's the key here. People regularly confuse these two words, imply and infer. In general, the speaker or the writer implies and the reader or hearer infers. Does that make sense? If you're speaking, you are implying. If you are consuming in some way, reading or hearing, you are inferring. An implication is a suggestion of something without expressly stating it. For example, the teacher implied that there would be an exam. Right? The teacher didn't say it expressly, there's going to be an exam, but a student listening to it inferred from what the teacher said that there was going to be an exam. An inference is a deduction drawn by a reader or a hearer. An inference may be drawn from facts or data or claims about whatever is being discussed. These words are most often confused by using the verb infer to describe what a speaker or a writer is doing. For example, you just said that Steph Curry is a better shooter than Michael Jordan. You're inferring that he's the best offensive guard in the history of the NBA. Well, that's a mistake. Right? The speaker may have implied something about Steph Curry, but the speaker did not infer it. The listener or the reader is the one doing the inferring. Well, something like this. From the history and statistics you're reciting, am I right to infer that you think that Steph Curry is the best shooting guard in the history of the NBA? One could also ask, are you implying that Steph Curry is the best shooting guard in the history of the NBA? So the sense of the words is close, and it's understandable why people might get a little confused. The principal distinction lies in the subject of the verb, the person doing the action. To infer belongs to readers and hearers. To imply belongs to speakers and writers. We should use them correctly to signal clearly who is performing the action. When we abuse these words, we are confusing, and thus we're not communicating clearly and succinctly.
Thanks for listening. Tune in tomorrow for more from the Heidelcast, brought to you by HeidelbergReformationAssociation.org. Don't forget, when the coin in the coffer clinks, the cost of bandwidth shrinks. Copyright Heidelberg Reformation Association. All rights reserved. This is a Heidel Media production.
This podcast